The Candyman. On a cold, misty evening of October 31st, 1974, the streets of Pasadena, Texas, were bustling with trick-or-treaters. Ronald O'Brien, wearing a raincoat, walked with his two young children, 8-year-old Timothy and 5-year-old Elizabeth, alongside his neighbor, Jim Bates, and Bates's two children. After one house yielded no answer, the children grew impatient and ran ahead. O'Brien lingered only to catch up moments later, presenting 5 enormous Pixie sticks. He claimed the occupant of the dark house had finally appeared and handed him the expensive confections. That evening, back at home, Timothy asked for a piece of candy before bed and chose one of the Pixie sticks. Almost immediately, Timothy complained of a bitter taste, which O'Brien quickly washed away with Kool-Aid. Within minutes, Timothy was suffering from severe stomach pains, vomiting and convulsing violently. His father carried him, limp, rushing toward aid, but Timothy died in the ambulance. The Pixie sticks were found to contain enough potassium cyanide to fatally poison 3 adults. The subsequent investigation uncovered a horrific truth. O'Brien was drowning in over $100,000 in debt and had cycled through 21 jobs in the preceding decade. Months before Halloween, he had secretly taken out $10,000 life insurance policies on both of his children. He had also visited chemical supply stores inquiring about cyanide and its lethal dosages. The man who supposedly gave out the candy was later confirmed to be working at the airport, with over 200 witnesses to his alibi. O'Brien had secreted the poisoned Pixie sticks in his raincoat sleeves, giving them to his own children and 3 others to create the illusion of a random attack. The jury deliberated for a mere 46 minutes before convicting him. O'Brien was executed by lethal injection on March 31st, 1984. Timothy's story serves as a tragic, heavy reminder that sometimes the greatest danger originates from the most unexpected place. I learned a harsh lesson myself when I entered my own name and email into a search engine. Site after site run by data brokers displayed my private details, old addresses, phone numbers, and even family information, all easily accessible to anyone. It's a deeply violating feeling. Data brokers amass and sell your personal data without your consent, earning billions in the process. And while they are technically required to remove your information upon request, the procedure is often so convoluted and frustrating that most individuals simply abandon the effort. Sponsor section. Aura, protecting your digital life. That's precisely where today's sponsor, Aura, steps in. Aura manages this problem automatically. They ensure your private data is removed from these sites and actively work to keep it off. I personally rely on Aura and recommend it to my inner circle because it is the only way I genuinely feel secure online. But Aura offers much more than just data removal. It operates as a comprehensive digital security platform. It provides alerts if your information appears on the dark web, offers real-time fraud alerts for your bank and credit accounts, and includes a secure VPN, antivirus protection, a password manager, and 24/7 US-based support. Should the worst happen, they back your protection with $5 million in identity theft insurance. It's honestly enraging that companies are permitted to profit by commoditizing and selling our private lives. That's why I chose Aura. You can start protecting yourself today with a 14-day free trial using my link found in the description or the pinned comment. In just 2 weeks, you'll see exactly how much of your personal information is currently exposed. I refuse to go unprotected online, and you shouldn't either. Thank you to Aura for supporting this video. If you find this account of events compelling, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and smash the like button to support our work. The Fake Trick-or-Treater. In Sun Valley, California, on the night of October 31st, 1957, Peter Fabiano and his wife Betty had just settled into bed when the doorbell rang, well after 11 p.m., far too late for traditional trick-or-treaters. Peter nevertheless went downstairs to answer. Betty heard him remark, "It's a little late for this, isn't it?" A voice simply answered, "No." Then, A sudden pop. Betty and her teenage daughter, Judy, rushed to the door, finding Peter bleeding profusely from a gunshot wound to his chest. He died almost instantly. The killer had worn a bizarre Halloween disguise: blue jeans, a khaki jacket, red gloves, and a domino mask with painted features. The figure held up a paper bag concealing a handgun, fired a single shot, and then fled to a waiting car. Peter, a successful beauty salon owner and Marine veteran, was loved by many. When questioned about enemies, Betty named Joan Rabble. Joan had worked at Peter's salon and grown close to Betty. When the Fabiano marriage struggled, Betty moved in with Joan, and their relationship became romantic. However, Betty eventually returned to Peter, promising never to see Joan again. Devastated, Joan met Goldine Pides, a recently divorced medical secretary. Over 4 years of shared coffee mornings, Joan systematically manipulated Goldine, painting Peter as vile, abusive, and evil, none of which was true. On September 21, 1957, Goldine purchased a .38 caliber revolver. On Halloween, they donned disguises and drove to the Fabiano home, waiting until the lights went out. Goldine approached the door and shot Peter, while Joan waited as the getaway driver. 2 weeks later, detectives traced the gun to Goldine, who confessed immediately. Both women pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and were sentenced to 5 years to life. The Wrong Door Incident. On October 17, 1992, 16-year-old Yoshihiro Hattori and his American host brother, Webb Haymaker, were excited to attend a Halloween party. Yoshi, an exchange student from Japan who had arrived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana just 2 months earlier, was dressed in a white tuxedo, impersonating John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. Around 8 p.m., they drove to the neighborhood where the party was being held. Due to similar addresses and confusing Halloween decorations, they mistakenly approached the wrong house. The boys rang the doorbell, but, receiving no response, began walking back to their car. Inside, Bonnie Peer saw the costumed figures through a side door. Startled, she locked the door and instructed her husband, "Rodney, get your gun." Rodney Pierre grabbed a loaded .44 Magnum revolver. When he opened the carport door, he saw the boys heading back to their car. He pointed the gun at Yoshi and shouted, "Freeze!" Yoshi, who was walking back toward the house, thinking he had finally found the party, did not understand the command or even register the weapon. Webb saw the danger and yelled desperately at his friend. Pierre fired a single shot. The bullet pierced both lobes of Yoshi's left lung. He died in the ambulance minutes later from blood loss. Initially, police quickly questioned and released Pierre, stating he was acting within his rights under Louisiana's shoot the stranger law, the Castle Doctrine. Only after the Louisiana governor and the Japanese consul protested was Pierre charged with manslaughter. His defense argued that Yoshi's extremely unusual manner of movement would be found scary by any reasonable person. The jury took just over 3 hours to acquitting Pierre. Yoshi's parents pursued a civil court case and were awarded $650,000 in damages. The Hayride Incident. On October 11, 2014, 17-year-old Cassidy, Sheret, and several classmates arrived at Harvest Hill Farm in Mechanic Falls, Maine, for a night of Halloween thrills. They were there to experience The Gauntlet, a popular haunted hayride. Cassidy was a top honor student at Messalonsky High School, ranking first academically in her class of 244 and a standout varsity soccer player. The attraction used a 1979 Jeep CJ5 to tow a trailer carrying over 20 passengers through a corn maze. As the Jeep began descending a hill that evening, it suddenly lost control. The Jeep and trailer flipped over, throwing passengers violently into the air. Cassidy and her friends were ejected from the trailer. Several others suffered broken bones, ankle injuries, and abrasions. 22 people were transported to hospitals. Cassidy's injuries were the most severe. She died at the scene. The investigation revealed a shocking degree of negligence. The Jeep's rear brakes were completely non-functional, and the front brakes were not working correctly. The vehicle was also hauling more than double its intended towing capacity. The brake fluid reservoir was empty, and several brake parts were either missing or improperly installed. Employees had reportedly warned farm owner Peter Bulldog that the Jeep S brakes were faulty and that he should junk it, but Bulldog had ignored the warnings. The vehicles had gone years without maintenance. In November 2016, Harvest Hill Farm pleaded guilty to a felony charge of aggravated driving to endanger. Cassidy's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit that settled in 2017. The monetary award was used to support the Shine on Cass Foundation, established in Cassidy's memory. On October 31, 2004, in Napa, California, 3 roommates spent the evening handing out candy to trick-or-treaters at their home on Dorset Street. They were 26-year-old Leslie Mazzara, a former beauty queen, 26-year-old Adrienne Insomnia, a civil engineer, and 27-year-old Lauren Mansa, a volleyball coach. They laughed and chatted as they gave out treats. By 11 p.m., the flow of trick-or-treaters had ceased, and all 3 women went to bed. Leslie and Adrienne slept in upstairs bedrooms, while Lauren's room was downstairs. Around 2 a.m., Lauren was jolted awake by the sound of breaking glass. Then she heard blood-curdling screams from upstairs. Heavy footsteps pounded through the house. Lauren listened in terror as the footsteps grew louder, descending the stairs toward her. She fled out the back door and hid in the yard, barely breathing. She then heard someone scrambling out of the basement window and running off into the darkness. Lauren cautiously re-entered the house and made her way upstairs. The scene she found was one of horror. Leslie lay face down in a pool of blood, roughly 2 inches deep. Adrienne was near the back of the bed, barely alive and bleeding heavily. Lauren slipped on the blood as she frantically tried to escape and call for help. Both women had been stabbed multiple times. When police arrived, both were dead. The investigation eventually identified the killer as 26-year-old Eric Koppel, who was engaged to Lily Prudhomme, a close friend of Adrienne's. Eric had attended the housewarming party when the women moved in. DNA evidence from the scene conclusively linked him to the murders. Eric Koppel was convicted and sentenced to 2 life sentences with no possibility of parole. The cold case. On the evening of October 30, 1975, mischief night, 15-year-old Martha Moxley left her home in the Bellhaven section of Greenwich, Connecticut. This was the traditional night when neighborhood youths would ring bells and play pranks. Martha was a popular student who had recently moved to Greenwich. She joined other teenagers at the Skakel house across the street. According to friends, Martha began flirting with and eventually kissed Thomas Skakel, 17. Martha was later seen falling down together behind a fence with Thomas near the pool in the Skakel backyard around 9:30 p.m. Then, Martha vanished into the darkness. The next morning, October 31st, Halloween Day, Martha's mother grew worried when her daughter hadn't returned home. A search began that afternoon, and Martha's body was discovered beneath a tree in her family's backyard. Pieces of a broken 6-iron golf club were found near the body. An autopsy indicated she had been both beaten and stabbed with the club, which was traced back to the Skakel residence. The case garnered global publicity because the Skakel children were the nieces and nephews of Ethel Skakel Kennedy, widow of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. For decades, no one was charged. Then, in 2000, Michael Skakel, who was 15 at the time of the murder, was arrested at age 41. He was convicted in 2002 and sentenced to 20 years to life. However, in 2018, the Connecticut Supreme Court vacated his conviction. On October 30, 2020, exactly 45 years after Martha's murder, the state announced it would not retry Skakel. The murder remains officially unsolved. Taylor Van Diest. On October 31, 2011, in Armstrong, British Columbia, 18-year-old Taylor Van Diest left her house dressed as a zombie. She was excited to meet friends for one final night of trick-or-treating before they were considered too old. Taylor was a 2011 graduate of Pleasant Valley Secondary School, an honor student, a standout athlete, and a lifelong volunteer who was cherished in her small community. Around 6 p.m., as darkness descended, Taylor began walking along railroad tracks toward her friend's house, a short, familiar walk. She exchanged texts with her friend, chatting about typical teenage subjects. Then, at 6:01 p.m., Taylor sent a text saying she was being creeped or followed. That was the last message Taylor ever sent. When Taylor failed to arrive, her friend grew worried and called her repeatedly, but received no answer. A search began immediately, with friends, family, and police scouring the area. 2 hours later, they found Taylor, badly beaten and clinging to life, along a quiet stretch of train tracks. She was rushed to Kelowna General Hospital, but died the next morning from her injuries. She had been strangled and bludgeoned with a heavy flashlight. Her head wounds were fatal. DNA found under Taylor's fingernails linked the murder to 28-year-old Matthew Forrester from Cherryville. During interrogation, when officers asked, "Do you feel bad for killing Taylor?" Forrester replied yes. He confessed to hitting Taylor multiple times with a flashlight and leaving her for dead. Forrester pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in 2018 and was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 17 years. Taylor and her family had never met Forrester before that night. Christopher Jenkins. On Halloween night, October 31st, 2002, 21-year-old Christopher Jenkins left his apartment in Minneapolis dressed in a Native American costume. He was looking forward to a night of Halloween bar hopping with his girlfriend and another couple. Jenkins was a University of Minnesota business senior and captain of the school's lacrosse team. Smart, popular, and well-liked. The group went to the Lone Tree Bar and Grill in downtown Minneapolis. Around midnight, Jenkins was removed from the bar for being too intoxicated. He left behind his phone, wallet, and jacket. The bouncer watched him turn left onto Hennepin Avenue and disappear into the cold Halloween night. That was the last time anyone saw Christopher Jenkins alive. When Jenkins did not return home, family and friends immediately grew concerned and worked with police to search for him. On 2 separate occasions, bloodhounds tracked his scent from a pizza shop across from the bar to a parking garage. Drops of blood were found in the garage, but his scent trail ended there. The case then went cold. 4 months later, on February 27, 2003, a worker spotted something in the Mississippi River. Jenkins's body was found floating on its back between the 3rd Avenue Bridge and St. Anthony Falls, still wearing his Halloween costume. His oversized shoes were still on, his shirt was tucked into his pants, and his arms were folded across his chest. He had human hair clenched in his left hand. GHB, a common drug used to incapacitate victims, was found in his system. Police initially ruled it an accidental drowning, but later reclassified it as a homicide after receiving information from a jailed witness. In 2018, prosecutors stated the case was not chargeable. The murder remains unsolved. The zombie bus incident. On October 10, 2014, 18-year-old Jeremy McPatterson arrived at the Incredible Corn Maze in Hauser, Idaho, for his first night of work. He was excited and nervous. The attraction featured a zombie slayer paintball bus, where patrons rode through the corn maze on a modified school bus, shooting at workers dressed as zombies using paintball guns mounted outside the windows. Jeremy, a tall and athletic West Valley High School senior, had been hired to play one of the zombies. His cousins and friends had been working there for weeks and told him it was great fun and easy money. Around 10:30 p.m., Jeremy was in position, ready to perform. His job was to emerge from hiding spots in the corn maze and pretend to attack the bus while riders shot paintballs at him. As the bus slowly rolled through the field, Jeremy emerged from his hiding spot and ran toward the rear of the bus to play his role. Then Jeremy stumbled. Multiple witnesses saw him fall forward, landing directly in front of the passenger side rear tires. The bus immediately ran over him. Due to the cornfield's uneven terrain, the bus rocked and bumped constantly, and nobody on the bus realized what had happened. Many of the patrons believed the jolt was simply part of the ride. The bus continued moving away from Jeremy's location. Only when the role players began to reset for the next bus did anyone realize something was terribly wrong. Jeremy McPadden died at the scene. His aunt stated that the teens were told they would be paid $50 for each night. It was Jeremy's first night. His cousin had fallen under the bus a few nights earlier, but was unharmed. No charges were filed. The Zombie Slayer bus attraction remained closed. We hope you found this rewritten passage engaging and informative. If you did, please support the channel by hitting the like button, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment letting us know your thoughts.